all I was seeing was basically leadership failure, to the point that the lives of the guys standing next to me were literally, from what I could see, in danger of something seriously going wrong and somebody being killed.
That is the voice of Bowe Bergdahl, who is an Army sergeant who is possibly facing a court-martial after walking away from his post, fell into the hands of the Taliban. He's now talking. ABC News correspondent Jim Ryan has a story. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, McGraw. That's the first time that anybody in the public, really, I think, has heard the voice of Bowe Bergdahl. There was no gag order on his court-martial there at that military base at Fort Hood. He's been talking, though, with a filmmaker, the same guy who was responsible for movies like The Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30. Mark Bowe is his name. He's done 25 hours worth of phone interviews with Bowe Bergdahl. Decided to make that audio available to the podcast makers of something called Serial. That's the podcast. And now it's been released there, and you can get you can actually hear firsthand account by Bowe Bergdahl of what happened that day in 2009.
Is the government going to charge him with court-martial?
Yes, he's already going through that process. He could face life in prison, and I don't think this podcast will play into that sentencing or into that process at all. They kind of conduct that in a vacuum, and the hearings will continue at Fort Hood in Central Texas.
Now, he also was controversial in that the United States traded 5 Taliban prisoners for him. That's where a lot of sort of consternation comes from all this.
Absolutely, and still, yesterday there was a report released in Washington. A congressional committee said that the exchange of Bowe Bergdahl for those 5 Taliban prisoners may have violated federal law because the president didn't give 30 days notice that this exchange was going to be made. The administration says that isn't the case, that they were concerned about Bergdahl's life and that there was an urgent need to get this done as quickly as possible. So that end of the controversy is still roiling along, McGraw.
Yeah, how many soldiers ended up dying trying to find him?
Well, some of his fellow soldiers there in Afghanistan say that as many as 6 may have died in the search for Bowe Bergdahl after he went missing. So whether they were on active duty and specifically looking for him or still within that region because he was missing in that region isn't clear. But suffice it to say that his fellow soldiers say that there were lives lost.
Yeah. Is this filmmaker planning on making a movie?
Apparently so. Now, I don't think that the precise format of that has been laid out, but his other films have been quite popular. The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30. We may see something related to that.
He also... he was released a while ago. Why has it taken so long for this court-martial, and how much longer will it have to go?
Well, it is a long process, and we won't know the outcome for several more months, whether he's sent to prison, whether he's drummed out of the military, or whether nothing at all happens with him. Right now, he's riding a desk at a military base in San Antonio, McGraw, and presumably could have talked to anybody, but has done all these telephone interviews with Mark Bowe. But you're right. I mean, it's going to be some time before the disposition of that case.
Health-wise, both physical and mental, how is he?
Seems fine. You can hear his mental state, I think, in the audio conversation. He sounds strong, and presumably he's physically back in shape. If you saw the video of him as he was being released, I mean, it looked extremely unstable, looked extremely thin that day in Afghanistan, and presumably has resumed much of his strength since then.
ABC News, Jim Ryan in Dallas. Jim, thanks for checking in.
Thanks, McGraw.
6:55, Big 550, KTRS.
Join the barbecue revolution every Sunday night from